In our headlines on this Friday afternoon, June 23rd, President Yoon Suk-yeol and his Vietnamese counterpart Vo Von Tuong agreed to expand economic cooperation and to strengthen security collaboration amid the current climate of geopolitical tensions. Meanwhile, heavy seasonal rain is forecast to pound Korea, starting in the southern parts of the country on Sunday before expanding to the rest of the nation on Monday. Over in the U.S., the Coast Guard there says a missing tourist submersible imploded close to the wreck of the Titanic, killing all 5 passengers of the extreme expedition on board. We start in Vietnam this afternoon, where President Yoon Suk-yeol and his Vietnamese counterpart Vo Von Tuong have agreed to chart a fresh course of bilateral ties under their comprehensive strategic partnership, as announced last December. For more on this, I have our senior presidential office correspondent Oh Soo-young standing by live on the line. Soo-young, welcome.
Hi, Sunny.
Right, so simply speaking, Soo-young, have the two leaders delivered?
Yeah, I think they did. Presidents Yoon and Tong held a joint press conference not very long ago outlining their talks. And it was a summit jam-packed with agreements, around 13 documents and memorandums of understanding in total, to put the bilateral strategic partnership into action amid growing geopolitical complexities and economic uncertainties in the Indo-Pacific region. And what was notable about this summit was the detail on increasing security cooperation on top of the two countries' trade ties. Now, the two leaders agreed to establish an annual dialogue channel between foreign ministers and strengthen Vietnam's maritime security capabilities through naval and coast guard cooperation, as well as the transfer of retired Korean vessels. Now, this comes as maritime tensions rise in the South China Sea amid increasing strain between the US and China, as well as competing territorial claims, including claims over the Paracel Islands by Vietnam, China, and Taiwan. Now, both Seoul and Hanoi wish to have an orderly state of relations in the Indo-Pacific region, which is very critical for regional peace and global trade. Now, on the trade front, the leaders agreed to ramp up economic cooperation, establishing a working group with a goal of reaching $150 billion in trade volume by 2030. And to facilitate this, a bunch of MOUs were signed to increase business and investment, including the recognition of driver's licenses, certificates of origin and labor-related rules, as well as broader support for innovation and startups. Focusing on future industries and collaboration, the two sides agreed to establish a mineral supply chain center, as Vietnam has abundant rare minerals crucial for future technologies. There were further deals on energy and infrastructure, spanning LNG power generation, new and renewable energy, and smart cities. Since establishing bilateral ties in 1992, South Korea and Vietnam have seen their trade ties increase 175-fold, with Vietnam being South Korea's third largest trade partner and South Korea being Vietnam's largest foreign investor.
Right, and speaking about investments, Young, I hear Korea is also poised to expand its economic financial commitment to Vietnam.
That's right, Sunny. So South Korea will be doubling its current commitment to economic cooperation funding for Vietnam from the current $2 billion to $4 billion by 2030. It will also expand grants for development projects in crucial areas to help Vietnam meet its sustainable development and climate goals. These include fields like transport, health, climate change, and digital transformation. Seoul will also allocate $10 million in grant aid for joint science and tech cooperation with the Vietnam Institute of Science and Technology.
Right, I see. And Soo-young, what are the broader implications of such commitment to Vietnam for Korea?
I think that's a great question, Sunny, because President Yoon has constantly emphasized that, well, in light of his vision to turn Korea into a global pivotal state, becoming a more active stakeholder in regional and global affairs. He said that strengthening Seoul's relations with the 11-member Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, is very important because this bloc has abundant resources as well as a young population, which all promise a very significant economic potential in the future. And of course, ASEAN countries are very much in South Korea's backyard and are very crucial partners in maintaining regional peace, including handling a nuclear North Korea. Now, in the meantime, President Yoon on Friday is going to attend 2 major business events and also meet with top politicians in Vietnam, including the General Secretary of the Communist Party, the Prime Minister, and the National Assembly Chair, before attending an official state dinner.
Right, a very busy agenda right there. All right, Seong, thank you for the latest from Vietnam, and do keep us posted throughout the day.
Will do, thank you.
Right, meanwhile, upon his arrival in Hanoi back on Thursday, President Yoon Suk-yeol sought to promote broader corporate and cultural connections between Korea and Vietnam. Our top office correspondent Kim Do-yeon reports.
President Yoon Suk-yeol touted Vietnam's economic potential and showed his support for Vietnamese businesses looking to enter the South Korean market. The president also underscored the importance of the next generation while at the Korea-Vietnam Partnership Fair held at a convention center in Hanoi on Thursday.
베트남은 젊고 역동적인 인구 구조를 가지고 있고 또 고도로 숙련되고 훌륭한 교육을 받은 재능 있는 청년들이 아주 많습니다. 베트남의 혁신 생태계 성장을 이끌고 있는 여러분이 바로 주인공입니다.
This event was arranged by the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy and included a K-Industry Showcase section showcasing products from major Korean companies, a Young Tech Startup Grand Challenge section to discover young entrepreneurs in the ASEAN region to start a business in South Korea, as well as an area providing consultation to businesses looking to enter the South Korean market. According to the top office, some 1,700 people attended the event.
창의와 혁신에는 국경이 없습니다. 세계는 이미 하나의 시장이 되어가고 있습니다. 자유와 창의가 존중되고 우수한 인재와 자본이 교류하는 과정에서 혁신과 성장이 이루어집니다.
Also at the K-Food Festival stand where Korean food was on show along with Korean Vietnamese fusion menus, Yoon chatted with Vietnamese youths and tried kimchi banh mi. President Yoon also attended a separate cultural exchange event at the same venue later. There, Vietnamese Vice President Vo Thi An Tran joined as well as K-pop groups Monsta X and AB6. AB6 performed its song Loser with a Vietnamese K-pop dance crew. Vietnamese pop singer Min also drew a crowd by singing Korean singer IU's My Old Story in Korean. In the meantime, President Yoon hosted a dinner for his 205-strong traveling business delegation to promote South Korea-Vietnam exchanges further. With Samsung Electronics chairman Lee Jae-yong and other big names attending the event, he called on businesses to look for opportunities in Vietnam.
글로벌 경기 둔화와 공급망의 교란, 에너지, 기후 위기 등으로 기업 환경이 많이 어렵습니다. 저는 이러한 위기의 극복을 글로벌 공급망 재편의 중심지이자 떠오르는 소비 시장인 이곳 베트남에서 찾을 수 있다고 생각합니다.
Saying a new opportunity is opening up for South Korea as it has a tight link to Vietnam compared to other nations, Yoon called on businesses to take the lead and vowed to provide support. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Over in Washington, D.C., 3 days of official high-level talks between Korea and the U.S. on cybersecurity came to an end on Thursday. According to the presidential office here, the senior steering group will serve as the center for joint efforts to ensure timely responses to related threats. In essence, officials at the National Security Office and their counterparts at the U.S. National Security Council have highlighted the importance of tackling North Korea's illicit cyber activities aimed at funding the country's hostile weapons programs. Earlier this week, U.S. President Joe Biden compared his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping to dictators, and despite the immediate denunciation from Beijing, Mr. Biden has dismissed the repercussions of his remarks. Our Shin Se-byuk has details.
U.S. President Joe Biden on Thursday downplayed the impact of his recent comments comparing Chinese President Xi Jinping to a dictator. He said at a news conference that calling Xi a dictator did not undermine Washington's relationship with Beijing.
I expect to be meeting with President Xi sometime in the future, in the near term, and I don't think it's had any real consequence.
He also suggested that he would not tone down his rhetoric on China in the future. Biden's comments on Thursday followed. Chinese ambassador to the U.S., Xie Fang, warned of consequences if Washington isn't to take any immediate and earnest actions. Earlier in the day, Fang made strong protests to senior White House and State Department officials. The Chinese embassy called Biden's earlier comments a smear, which seriously contradicts basic facts and undermines mutual trust. Speaking at a campaign fundraiser in California on Tuesday, Biden equated Xi to a dictator and claimed that Xi was embarrassed when the Chinese balloon was blown off course without his knowledge. It prompted a fierce backlash from Beijing.
They're an open political provocation China is strongly dissatisfied with and firmly opposed to this.
Biden's dictator remark also came only days after U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken made his visit to China, where he said the two countries had made progress towards getting their relations back on track. However, now given the Chinese embassy is describing the nature and impact of Biden's comment as very negative, this could add more tension to Washington-Beijing relations and could undermine the progress made during Blinken's trip. 신세벽, Arirang News.
North Korea is likely to use its nuclear weapons as a tool for threat rather than an actual attack. Now, this is according to the U.S. Office of the Director of National Intelligence on Thursday. The office believes North Korea's Kim Jong-un will resort to coercive measures, including nuclear threats, to gain political objectives and to deter a strong Seoul Washington response. The office also shed doubt on prospects of an offensive by Pyongyang using nuclear weapons to seize power on the peninsula, explaining that such a scenario is only likely if North Korea could outmatch South Korea's military capabilities, deter U.S. intervention, and secure unwavering Chinese support. Heavy monsoon rain will pound Korea starting in the southern parts of the country this coming Sunday before spreading nationwide next Monday. In fact, weather forecasters are warning of torrential downpours in many parts of Korea in the days ahead. And in preparation for what's to come, Prime Minister Han Duck-soo on this Friday conducted a check on safety protocols, including public alerts. He also made his way to flood-prone homes near the Torimcheon stream and called for greater efforts to better protect the people there, especially those living in semi-basement apartments known as panjiha. In other news, an extreme expedition to the wreck of the Titanic is believed to have ended with a tragic implosion, killing all 5 passengers in a matter of milliseconds. Our Yoon has the latest.
A deep-sea submersible operated by the U.S.-based company Ocean Gate Expeditions launched around 6 a.m. Sunday, and when it failed to return on schedule, was reported overdue later Sunday afternoon. The sub carrying 5 people was on its way to where the famous Titanic sank more than a century ago. A search and rescue operation had pinned hopes on the vessel's 96-hour supply of oxygen. On Thursday, however, the U.S. Coast Guard said it had uncovered a debris field within the search area of the missing sub, wiping away the sliver of hope that remained for finding the 5 men. Rear Admiral John Mauger of the 1st Coast Guard District said during a news conference that the debris field was consistent with the catastrophic implosion of the vehicle and that the families of those on board had been notified.
In consultation with experts from within the Unified Command, the debris is consistent with the catastrophic loss of the pressure chamber. Upon this determination, we immediately notified the families.
Rear Admiral Mauger also told reporters that a robotic diving device deployed from a Canadian ship discovered the debris field on the seabed some 488 meters from the bow of the Titanic, 4 kilometers beneath the surface in a remote corner of the North Atlantic. The 5 passengers aboard the Titan were the company's founder and chief executive officer, Stockton Rush, who was piloting the sub, along with British billionaire and explorer Hamish Harding, Pakistani-born businessman Shahzada Dawood and his 19-year-old son Suleiman, and French oceanographer and Titanic expert Paul-Henri Nargeolet. The 5-day multinational search for the vessel has come to an end, but the U.S. Coast Guard said it will continue searching near the Titanic for more clues about what happened to the Titan, and efforts will also continue to recover the sub and the remains of the 5 men who died. 이은진, Arirang News.
Netflix has praised Korea for proving the company's belief that great stories can come from anywhere and captivate audiences worldwide. At a media event here in Seoul back on Thursday, co-CEO Ted Sarandos pointed out that the global viewership of Korean content had surged 6-fold over the past 4 years, given the power of Korea's storytelling. He further added that 60% of Netflix subscribers had watched at least one Korean title. He also underscored that Netflix had invested in original, authentic local stories in over 50 countries since its global launch in the year 2016. Researchers say the year 2023 is shaping up to be the hottest on record, and accordingly, fears about skyrocketing electricity bills have led to collective efforts at some residential areas here to cut costs. Our Lee Soo-jin was there.
This summer is expected to be the hottest yet. With spiking temperatures and rate hikes, electricity bills are expected to reach record highs. There are, however, efforts being made by communities, individual households, and the private sector to cut down on energy usage and save money. Let's go find out how this apartment complex is doing exactly that. We met with Kim Dong-chul, who's the head manager of this apartment complex that was selected as a smart energy project by the provincial office. He told us that the 22 elevators in the complex use regenerative drives.
이 회생 제동 장치라고 했고, 기계실에 올라올 때는 전기에서 올라오는데 내려갈 때 그냥 내려가는 거를 내려가면서도 전기를 발전시켜 갖고 하는 거 이런 장치예요. 공동전기로 차감이 되죠.
These regenerative drives have saved the apartment complex more than $13,000 as of last month since their installation in 2019. The solar panels installed on the complex's roofs have also helped save an additional $5,000.
10개 동 중에서 여기 나머지 10개 동 중에서 남향으로 돼 있는 박공지붕에 5개 동에 설치가 돼 있는 거죠.
We are able to save 2 to 3 times more energy compared to other apartment complexes.
But this apartment complex isn't just saving energy costs on a community level.
Residents can download an app on their phones and check in real time how much electricity they are using.
A resident of the complex said he's optimistic about his chances of successfully managing his electricity bills.
I can see how I used around 150 kilowatt hours today, and so I just have to make sure I don't exceed the 300 kilowatt hour threshold.
Another way that individual households can lower their electricity bills this summer is through the energy cashback plan that you can get by registering at KEPCO's cashback website. Online registrations for the cashback exceeded the 200,000 mark just 11 days after its launch. The government's new energy cashback, starting in July, is being offered on top of the existing basic cashback plan. If you use around 427 kilowatt hour this summer, last year's average monthly energy usage in a 4-person household during summer, your electricity bill will come to around $62 compared to last year's $50 due to the rate hikes. But if you save just 10%, you're eligible to receive cash back totaling $3. With the $9 you've already saved just from using 10% less than last year, you'll actually end up saving nearly $12 in total this summer. If you save 30%, you'll be saving nearly $40. Energy vouchers have also been expanded this year for those who are classified as economically vulnerable. People can apply for the vouchers at any of the administrative welfare centers across the nation. We visited one of the centers ourselves to find out more.
Last year, the program was limited to recipients of medical and livelihood benefits, but this year it has been expanded to include recipients of housing and education benefits. The day we first began accepting applications, there was a huge influx.
Increasing interest in how to cut energy costs has also reached the private sector, namely department stores. The head of a solar panel installation team for Lotte department store told us that the store has plans to install solar panels at 4 more of its branches by the end of the year.
The Noan branch alone produces energy amounting to around 60 4-person households.
That's around 240,000 kilowatt-hour per year. While all the efforts being made already at various levels shows that concerns about energy costs are at an all-time high, it also raises hopes that people will be able to successfully manage their electricity bills during the upcoming peak summer months. 이수진, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. In the UK, the Bank of England on Thursday announced a surprise rate hike of 50 basis points, bringing the country's interest rate to 5%. The BOE said it made the decision as data suggested that UK inflation could take more time to cool down. According to figures released Wednesday, the UK's inflation rate is at 8.7%. The rate hike is the largest since February and means that the UK is seeing its highest borrowing costs level since April 2008. The news came as a shock to some economists who had predicted a 25 basis point increase. Turkey, meanwhile, also saw its main interest rate hiked from 8.5% to 15%. The hike is lower than what was expected, but still marks a policy reversal from President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who had insisted on keeping interest rates low. Inflation in Turkey is currently running at nearly 40%. We turn over to Brazil. A trial is underway that could temporarily prevent former President Jair Bolsonaro from running for office again. The trial started on Thursday at the Supreme Electoral Court in the capital, Brasilia. Bolsonaro did not show up in person. He faces charges of abuse of political power and misuse of public media. The charges were made over a July 2022 meeting between Bolsonaro and foreign diplomats while he was still president. There, he reportedly claimed that Brazil's electronic voting machines were prone to being hacked and vulnerable to fraud. Although not a criminal case, if found guilty, he could be barred from running for public office for up to 8 years. Shifting our attention to Beijing, the Chinese capital on Thursday saw its hottest day ever recorded for the month of June. Local media reported that one of Beijing's main weather stations recorded a temperature of 41.1 degrees Celsius. Another smaller station in the northeast reached an even higher temperature of 41.8 degrees. The figures beat the previous high of 40.6 degrees recorded on June 10, 1961. And it came close to the hottest temperature ever recorded in the city, which was 41.9 degrees on July 24, 1999. Beijing has since issued an orange alert, the second most severe weather warning on its 4-tier system. Authorities say that temperatures could remain as high as 39 degrees until Saturday. And finally, Hong Kong welcomed the return of its annual Dragon Boat Festival. Taking place on Thursday at Aberdeen, the festival was held as normal for the first time since the COVID-19 pandemic. 45 teams took part, racing distances of 250 and 500 meters. Depending on the boat, teams taking part in the festival ranged from 8 to 50 people. Teams are usually composed of a drummer, a helmsman, and paddlers. Typically, a standard dragon boat in Hong Kong has enough space for 20 people. The festival is part of a broader celebration of the ancient Chinese boat sport, which dates back more than 2,000 years. Matthew Ashley, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. Well, it's hotter today. Seoul sees highs going up about 5 degrees higher than yesterday, with Gwangju also going up to 5 degrees higher than season norms, and it will remain quite hot through the weekend. We started off the day under cloudy skies, but it will get sunnier as the day goes on, with stronger UV rays in the western parts of the country and Jeju. And south of Jeju is likely to have extreme levels of UV rays today. Meanwhile, Gangwon-do and Gyeongsang-pukdo provinces will see passing rain with scattered thunderstorms during the day today. Afternoon highs are 2 to 7 degrees higher than yesterday in most parts of the country, and the air quality will be decent nationwide all day today. Now, this year's monsoon season is set to begin this weekend, starting from Jeju and the south coast on Sunday. Then the monsoonal front will drop showers nationwide next Monday. Well, monsoon rain that's forecast to drop heavily on Jeju looks to continue into next Wednesday before a short break. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
That ends our Friday afternoon newscast. But do stay with us for our panel session coming up next. Today we shed light on efforts to ease the plight of those displaced. Thank you for now.